What's up, family? Peace and shalom. Peace and shalom. It's Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, and welcome to another Freestyle Friday session. This is a late night edition. As you guys can see, it's 3:10 in the morning. I almost didn't do the session because I'm telling you, I've been slammed the past 3 weeks. About the past 3 weeks, it's been very hectic with moving to a new place and beginning another contract job. Is a lot of shifts and changes, internally here at home with family, having to commute to New York, take care of business and coming back. So there's been a lot going on, you know what I mean? So I missed a Freestyle Friday last week. And I know a lot of y'all was hitting me up like, yo, Divine, what's good? What's going on? How come you're not doing the Freestyle Friday? All right, well, this is what snacking on right now. There's some crunchy seaweed chips, right, called chompers. Really good, man. I'm eating some vegan ravioli with pasta. So yeah, y'all know it's late night. So definitely you can share this. There's probably not gonna be a lot of people in here tonight, but that's all good. No biggie. So I'm gonna chat about a few things. And I'll probably just wait to go further into like a lesson study, probably sometime next week when things start to, settle in a bit more for me. But I do want to hit on a few things real quick. So I'm gonna give you another few minutes to jump in. I also put the link out there, so y'all can definitely share the link as well. All right. So hit one. Definitely hit one if the audio and video is on point. Hit one if the audio and video is on point. I want to make sure that you guys are getting a smooth connection. All right. So definitely hit one and let me know if everything is good. And I'm really, like I said, being I've been swamped, I've been slammed past couple of weeks. I'm really doing this session for the diehard audience that watches this channel. I can't leave y'all up for so long. So I'm going to make sure or serve in the capacity that the Most High has me here to serve, to ensure that you guys get a quality session. All right. Okay, so I'll give you another few more minutes to come on in. Finishing this here. Oh, is that loud? My bad. It's almost done. Almost done. I didn't know it was that loud. Hold on, let me mute. Let me mute for y'all. I don't want y'all to hear me smacking in your ear. All right. Back. I'm back, family. I'm back. All right. Y'all crazy. So yeah, these chips is really good, man. I wish they had like a bigger bag of them, but I mean, I copped these from Sprout out here in Atlanta. It's like a mini Whole Foods, and it's local. So anybody's interested in it, you can get it from there as well. All right. So Yeah, I know, right? Make you want to go get a snack. I feel you. All right, so see, it's about 20 of us in here, so it'll spike up a little bit, but I'm gonna get started in a few. Let me grab something real quick. Hold on. Okay. All right. So being that this is a real freestyle Friday session, um, there's a few things that I'm gonna just discuss with y'all. The stuff that I had planned that I wanted to do, I didn't really finish putting it together. So I'm gonna save that probably for next session, and I'm gonna go in it with y'all. There's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. First thing I wanted to discuss is, as y'all can see, the last few videos on my channel, you saw the demonstration of the libations, you saw the demonstration of the cast and lots. All right. It's interesting because the libations video actually spurred an entire debate talk for you session on it, right? With Sister Mañana and Sister Imuna. And they did a whole session on the libations and whether or not we should use them today or not, right? Whether we should, you know, implement this practice again or whether we should just cease from doing it, right? And they put forth their arguments in regards to that. And I heard what their arguments were. I definitely, didn't agree. I mean, they went as far as saying about the Northern Kingdom, right? Because I had mentioned that from what it is that I propose from my particular worldview is that I shared with the fact that, so-called Negroes or so-called African Americans, so-called blacks or whatever, that the likelihood of them being Israelites stems them back to the northern tribes. And if those of you who are familiar with this YouTube channel, you know exactly how I reconcile that, right? So me lining them up with the Northern Kingdom and saying that this is an ethnic marker. This is a custom that followed them as they migrated out of Israel into West Africa, okay? And this is why we can find a lot of these customs systematically within certain West African tribes. And then we can trace the migrations there through historical accounts, looking at the customs and practices and traditions, examining those as well as assessing the oral traditions. All right. So we see that the weight actually leans more towards so-called African Americans, so-called blacks, so-called Negroes in America, links them more closely with the northern tribes. All right, given that evidence. And they really, once they heard that, and I'm saying, the purpose of maintaining the libations because the libation itself, it occurred before the mitzvot was given to Moshe. It was being performed. We see it first performed by Yaakov. He performed it. But then we see even before him, Melchizedek gave an offering of wine and bread to the Most High when he was communing with Abraham. So we have a situation where wine and bread was being used. And if those of you who've watched that video, you see that I had wine there as well as I had some unleavened bread there. So we have a situation where we see this as a custom before the law is given to Moshe. All right. And the forefathers are implementing this. We see that Yaakov is pouring a libation of wine and oil on a stone altar because of his encounter that he had with Yah that prompted him to do that. In regards to Abraham and Melchizedek, we see a situation where, after a war was fought and Melchizedek being the righteous king or the king of peace at that time, who lived in Salem, he went and he interfaced with Abraham, and I have a whole lecture on my take on that. It's called The Patriarchal Priesthood in the Bible Unveiled. I did that way back in the summer of 2015. It's on this channel. You can go back and check it out, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that we have a situation where we had an offering of wine and bread that was given to the Most High. We see Yaakov giving it. And then when we get into the narrative of Israel exiting out of Mitzrayim and then coming out and they're receiving the mitzvot or the laws. One of these laws govern libations as it pertains to them giving offerings unto the Kohanim or the priests. All right. Now, this is extremely important to note, and that is because the practice was not just exclusive to the priests. Okay, the people were also performing this practice, as we can see a situation with King David, but instead of wine, he pours water. All right, we have a situation where other libations is given, but Israel then corrupted the libation because they started to offer it into other Elohim, other powers. And when this happened, this is when the Most High said to them, I'm not accepting your libations anymore, because now you're giving drink offerings or pouring drink offerings to what the text says is the Queen of Heaven, and not just the Queen of Heaven, but to other deities. So this became a big issue. Okay. So what we have to take into account is the people never stopped this custom from the time of Yaakov all the way to the time where they're offering these bread cakes as well as this wine to the Queen of Heaven. They continue to do the practice. And then we see it sprinkled out throughout the text as well. We see it in the book of Psalms, where libation is being poured, or a reference to libation being poured is being poured out is symbolic of or figurative of something as far as the spilling of blood, right? We see that in the book of Psalms, okay? And we see that and again in regards to the Queen of Heaven. This practice was always there. The problem was when Israel started to give these things unto another deity, and that became an issue, another power, that became an issue. And that's when the Most High had an issue with it. But as long as they kept doing it unto him, the scripture says it became a sweet aroma. Pouring of wine was a sweet aroma or a sweet savor unto Yah, right? That's how he felt in regards to the pouring of wine or the drink offering. So when I'm reinstituting this practice, because I'm like, this is something that helps to identify us. It's an ethnic marker to help to identify us, where we came from and where we at today. And for people to shun it or feel a certain kind of way, it is what it is. I don't say that everybody in Israel should be pouring libations. I don't say that, right? It's if that is your cup of tea, fine, you drink it. If not, then you pass it on. It's that simple. But the objective is to get you to see things from a different perspective. The problem with our community is that there's a lack of innovation and there's a lack of reconstruction. So what people tend to do is they take religious dogma and they pass it off as if they verified whether or not that dogma that they are entrenched in is really valid or not. You feel what I'm saying? Instead of saying, let me put it through an inductive analytical assessment to determine whether or not this is something that is genuinely a practice of my ancestors, or is it a religious thing that occurred after my ancestors were taken out the land and went into captivity? Is this original to the pre-exilic ancestors, or was it something that we adopted after captivity? And like I said, there's people that practice Second Temple Judaism, and I have no issues with people that practice that. That's you. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Me, on the other hand, that's not what I do. I don't practice Second Temple Judaism. I practice the pre-exilic Israelite culture. And the problem is that when people don't fully comprehend that, they start to, throw certain jabs out there, such as, oh, so we're going to follow the Northern Kingdom. Oh, so all the kings of the Northern Kingdom was wicked. They all was evil. Well, this is being written from the perspective of the Levite or Levitical scribes who, by acquaintance, was obliged to support the southern tribes, or i.e., the kings of Judah. Now we have a peculiar situation here. The text talks about the annals of the kings of Israel, but we don't have that book. See, there was material that was there that gave the northern tribes perspective on how things transpire. But unfortunately, that has not been preserved to this day. But the text itself does attest to this existing. Very interesting. I wonder if we had that text, what it would say. Would the northern tribes then paint a different picture of Judah and Benjamin and Levi, saying that they were the ones that really went off, but they was the ones that was holding fast to what they were supposed to do or what was given to them? Will they be able to excuse it and say, well, they were corrupt in the South, therefore we made some changes in the North, and the change that we made, they perceived it in the wrong way, so they wrote it off as us doing something wicked? That becomes a real political matter right there. Very interesting. But if we want to keep it strictly to the text, let me bring up some scriptures, because it sounded like when the sisters were discussing it, that they started to bang on the northern tribes and the kings. All the kings are wicked. And I'm like, that's interesting. Because if you're saying all the kings are wicked and the Most High did away with or divorced Israel, we have a very peculiar situation, because when the Most High speaks of Judah, he says Judah is more wicked than Israel. Did y'all know that? And I've said this before on this channel. He said that Judah is more wicked than Israel. The southern tribes were more wicked than the northern tribes. How about that? That's really interesting. You know what? Let's go ahead and grab it. And he when he talks about Israel, he's speaking about Samaria, right? So this is important. Let me bring it up for y'all. Let me bring it up for y'all. And then we're gonna transition to a few more things. We're gonna get it in tonight for another hour, and I'm gonna leave y'all alone. So I want to say shalom to everybody in the chat. Let me give y'all some shout outs real quick. Shout out to Mercurial Warrior. Shalom to Ezekiel Ben Israel, Sam Bone, Reliable Andrew, Cheryl, Jennifer M, Navia Yashar L, Esclu Garvey, Aisha Frazier. Who else is up in here? Barzillai Avshalom Shamar Yah. Mr. Black Coach in the building, Dale H in the building, Matthew Yisrael, Marcus Cameras, Adaya Yisrael, Quincy Claiborne, Daniela, Ali Yael, Just Looking, Sankofa John. Let's see. Glory be to the Most High forever. So peace and shalom to all y'all that are here late night hanging out with Divine Prospect and Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. We appreciate you being here. We love all you guys. And I thank y'all for your support, you know. And we try to make this channel something as a gift to give back to you guys for your support. And that's why I do the Freestyle Fridays. Otherwise, I would just put lectures up here and other little material up here on proactivism and stuff like that. But I realize a lot of y'all want to interact with me, so I want to give you the opportunity to do that so we can make this a more lively. And not only that, the chat itself is like an extension of what we're about, you know, and we've learned how to conduct ourselves in the chat. We've made connections in the chat. So I tend to be the bridge, you know, networking with people and bridging people together with one another, or people will meet through me, because I like to encourage that. Now, what happens after that, I'm not liable for that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not liable for that, right? But I like bringing people in our community together so they can have conversations, they can edify each other, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, Marcus Cameras. Yes, that's my brother, Kyle. I see you. I see you. I see you. All right. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's see what the Most High banged on Judah. Right? You want to see what the Most High banged on Judah? Okay, let me show y'all. Let me show y'all when the Most High banged on Judah. Let's bring it up here. Should have had a reader with me. Should have had a reader with me. Hold on. All right. So we're gonna go to Ezekiel chapter 16. Right? Y'all go ahead and get Ezekiel chapter 16. Right? We're gonna read this real quick. I want y'all to see this. What the Most High says about Judah. Everybody want to be Judah, right? Everybody want to talk bad about the northern kingdom. Okay. So we're gonna read this a little bit. All right. I think I'm gonna start. Man, matter of fact, y'all read the entire chapter. But let me zoom in on 44 to 59. All right. Behold, everyone who quotes Proverbs will quote this proverb concerning you, saying, well, matter of fact, let me let y'all see this so y'all just won't see me the whole time. Let me zoom in. Hold on. I got y'all, family. Give me a second. I want y'all to see this. It's for the people that be banging on the northern tribes. All right, let's read this. Right. All right. Scroll down. We'll quote this proverb concerning you, saying, like mother, like daughter. You are the daughter of your mother, who loathed her husband and children. You are also the sister of your sisters, who loathed their husband and children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father was an Amorite. Now, we know that this right here is figurative, okay? Because when you study the text, you know the perspective of the Hittites from the characters in the text and the Amorites, okay? So there literally was not from a Hittite and an Amorite, okay? And we know that by looking at Bereshit chapter 10, all right? But let's keep going. Now, your older sister is Samaria, who lives north of you with her daughters, and your younger sister, who lives south of you, is Sodom with her daughters. Yet you have not merely walked in their ways or done according to their abominations, but as if that were too little, you acted more corrupt in all your conduct than they. As I live, declares Yah, Sodom, your sister and her daughters have not done as you and your daughters have done. Behold, this was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had arrogance, abundant food, and careless ease, but she and her daughters, but she did not help the poor and needy. Thus, they were haughty and committed abominations before me. Therefore, I removed them when I saw it. Furthermore, Samaria did not commit half of your sins, for you have multiplied your abominations more than they. Thus, you have made your sisters appear righteous by all your abominations which you have committed. Also, bear your disgrace in that you have made judgment favorable for your sisters. Because of your sins in which you acted more abominably than they are more in the right than you. Yes, be also ashamed and bear your disgrace in that you made your sisters appear righteous. And y'all can go ahead and just read the rest of this. But I want y'all to read the entire text. Let's switch back. Let's switch back. I want y'all to read the entire text. So here we have people, individuals, and this is not a shot at Sister Umura, Sister Maya. Those are good sisters, right? I've been with them in the past. I've had great conversations with them. Good sisters, but we differ on the subject matter, and I'm speaking from my perspective in which we differ. And not just them, there's other people that share the same sentiment as them. So I'm not just speaking at individuals now. I'm speaking at the thought form behind the individuals, because no matter what happens to individuals, that thought form essence is still going to be there. That needs to be addressed. So when people say, when we say, and mind you, Yaakov, we get the first instance of the actual pouring of the libation, but we get the bread and wine offering from Melchizedek. So we have a Melchizedek situation, then we have a Yaakov situation, and then we transition into the Levitical situation. That's deep. It's not just Levites, I said. And then we see Israel practicing this by looking at Psalms and the prophets, in which they speak about the Queen of Heaven and the bread cakes being offered, the incense being burned unto them, the wine libations being poured. We have a situation where people, when you start to speak and say, hey, look, these pre-exilic customs, the northern tribes kept it with them when they migrated into West Africa. And the moment you said northern tribes migration, West Africa, and you talk about customs that they kept with them, and one of them being libations, automatically they say, well, the northern tribes were wicked. They were evil. The kings, they were all wicked. There was no righteous king. Perspective. See, they're not analyzing it the way I do. I can analyze it objectively, and once I've objectively deciphered it, then I can make a subjective, bring it to a subjective conclusion. So they say all of this, and then I bring them to Ezekiel chapter 16, where the Most High, through the prophet Ezekiel, says that the southern tribes, or that Judah, was more wicked, so wicked, in fact, more wicked than Sodom, more wicked than Samaria. They were so wicked that they made Samaria and Sodom appear righteous. And that those other two, Sodom and Samaria, did not do half the amount of abominations than Judah did. How do you address that? Okay, I think we're back, family. I think we are back. I think we are back. Hit one if we back in the building. Because we about to go in. We about to go in, family. We're gonna get at the naysayers today. We're gonna get at the naysayers today. All right. I think we back in the building. Let's make sure. Let's make sure everything's all good. Hit one if we back in the building, family. Hit one. Let's see if we back. I think we back. Let me see. Hit one. Are we back? All right, cool. That was crazy. I had a BSOD, man. Blue screen of death. I rarely have that on this laptop. I don't know what's going on. I never have it on my desktop. That's crazy. I'm gonna go look at it later. But as long as we back, family, let's go in. All right, let's go in. So I say, how do you address that question? You sit here and you bang on the northern tribes, and you talk greasy about the northern tribes, right? Talking about all the wicked kings came from the south and all of that, okay? Which I thought was interesting. I mean, all the wicked kings came from the north, right? But in the south, we have some wicked and righteous kings, right? But at the end of the day, when the prophet Ezekiel speaking and the Yah speaking through him, he's saying that Judah is more wicked than Samaria and Sodom. Not just Samaria, but Sodom as well. And we know what went down in Sodom. So how do you get around that? They can't get around that. You can't get around Ezekiel chapter 16 unless you rip it out the page. You can't get around that. So moving past that, understanding this, and again, this is the logic that people do in order to discredit a claim, right? They do ad hominem. That's an ad hominem attack on Israel. So they don't want to accept the fact that, oh, it was the northern tribes who kept this custom and they brought this custom. Well, the northern tribes were evil. They was wicked, and all their kings was evil and wicked. Oh, so we shouldn't do libations. Why not? And then I go on to say, well, hold on. And you know, in that discussion, it was really strange. And the reason why I say it's really strange is because we got to a point where I was like, if you're saying that we shouldn't pour libations because that's a custom that our forefathers have performed, then that means that, and the reason they said is because, oh, you don't know how they performed it. I'm like, really? You don't know how you performed it? That's not true. When you learn to read the language and you look at other, comparative cultures, you see how libations are poured. It's not rocket science. You just got to do the research and you can find how they pour it. You can find what they do, how they pour it. You can understand the whole thing. They're saying, oh, well, you can't do that because that is something that is holy. Again, this is what the dogmatic mind says. And because people are dogmatic does not make them evil or wicked or anything like that. So I'm not saying dogmatic or religious, as a means of condemning somebody or as a means of disrespecting or dishonoring somebody. I'm saying it so that way you guys can understand the block that's in their mind. There's a roadblock that's right there. When they hear certain buzzwords, there's a roadblock that comes up. And I'm trying to help them circumvent it. But they say you don't even know how they perform libations. And I didn't get a chance to really go in to explain all the research behind that I did in order to come to that conclusion. And y'all see some of it in that video. It's interesting. So then they go on to say, because that practice is holy and you do it unto Yah, if you're not doing it right, then I said, Joe, I mean, don't y'all keep Pesach or Passover? That's a ritual as well. Y'all keep that. So if y'all keep that, how many of y'all is actually dressing up, holding a staff in your hand with sandals on your feet? How many of y'all actually doing that? How many of y'all actually in the land when this is being performed? How many of y'all actually doing this? How many of y'all actually doing this? How many of y'all are killing the lamb like they did in the past? Because the only way that we have a ritual for how to kill the lamb is based on halakha, a halakhic law. You know why? Because the Torah is not specific on how to kill the lamb. That means if you're performing Passover and you're saying that I shouldn't pour a libation because it's too holy and I don't know what I'm doing, there's a chance that I could be doing it wrong. Why are you keeping Passover? Why are you keeping Passover? We got to a point where they even dismissed Passover, keeping Passover. They dismissed it. And I said, wow, it's interesting. Because even if you make an attempt, the objective of keeping Passover, and I did a whole video on this, it's called Feast Your Eyes on This. I did a whole lecture on this. The purpose of keeping Passover is to remind you what Yah did in the past, what he's doing now, what he will perform in the future. And it's an ethnic marker to set you apart from the other nations. And I'm gonna show you this, not just the other nation, others that claim that they're Israel. See, when I released the pre-exilic menological, model in regards to reckoning time as it pertains to the Chagim on the feast days, this was something that's very unique. There's very few, and I think a lot of people started practicing it after I did the extensive lecture. When I met Minister Carnes at HCA years ago, and I realized that he was doing that same, keeping that same calendar, so-called calendar, because that's not in the Hebrew. The word calendar is not in Hebrew. We're gonna go into a little bit of Hebrew in a minute. I want to make sure y'all see this. We're about to get into some Hebrew in a second. Let me just get through this first. We're gonna get into the Hebrew in a minute. We're gonna get to the Hebrew in a minute. All right. So I want to speak on the language, right? And I want to just share some things in regards to the language, right? So we're gonna get into the Hebrew in a minute. So I met Minister Carnes, HCA, and they were keeping it similar to me, but there were some other elements that they had not yet factored in, and I brought that to the table, right? So I did a whole lecture on it in 2016. It's a 3-part series. It's more than 7.5 hours. If y'all want the DVD's available. But I've also done several videos after that that are much shorter, that pretty much gives you the crux of what my argument is. But the way we keep the feast days is important because the way that we lay it out, right? KHM is distinct from how anybody else who claims to be Israel is performing it. And it was based on a reconstructive methodology using inductive analysis in order to get to a particular point. And it's funny because there's some people out there, they ridicule when I use these words, right? They laugh. Here's the thing, right? And I'm going to share this with y'all, all right? Originally, I'm from New York, okay? I'm from the Bronx. That's where I'm from originally. I'm from the Bronx, right? When I go back to New York, the way that I talk with my audience here, it's not how I talk when I get back to the Bronx, because they if I speak the way I speak now to them, and I do somewhat, I would lose them. I would lose them. I haven't always been like this all my life, right? I haven't always been like this. I developed this. And because I developed this, then Yah said, I'm going to use you. I said, nah, I don't want you to use me. He said, I'm going to use you. I said, okay. But what I'm saying is, you got to understand how serious this battle is. There's little to no think tanks in this community. There's little to no innovation in this community, right? There's people that do attempt to innovate, but a lot of people are walking in the steps of other people because there's no think tanks. When you produce think tank information, it's a paradigm shift. The game changes. And either people will roll with it or they'll roll out of sync with it and keep doing what they're doing. So I didn't come in here to say, oh, I'm going to disrupt the flow of it. That's not what I did. I said, listen, I've been given a task. I'm going to perform it. The best way for me to execute that task is being able to convey it as precisely as I can in the words that I utilize. Because the words hold the essence of what it is that I'm conveying to you. So you have people who ridicule my approach because of the words that I use and the deep methodologies that I use. Like, there's people that ridicule that. And, they make fun of that and everything. And I got tough skin. That stuff don't bother me. But what does bother me is that the people who are being taught, they are being brought to a low base level of understanding, and they are put in a rut and they're stuck there, and there's no development, there's no innovation, there's no growth in their spiritual life, and they're stuck and they're stagnant and nothing is growing, and they wonder why. So the people who ridicule what it is that I'm doing, it's funny, they really run into a brick wall. But what I have to say to that is, you're doing a disservice because I have a niche. You have a niche. You stay in your lane, play your role. I stay in my lane, play my role. It's simple like that. I'm a transformed person. I'm not the same person I was in the past. And I thank Yah for that. So therefore, I have to be able to exemplify that transformation in the way I talk and the way I walk. I'm nowhere near perfect. I never claim to be that. But I strive to be righteous. I strive to be righteous every day. I strive. I strive for perfection. You know, the scripture says a just man fall of 6 times, but he gets up. So it's not how many times you fell. It's how many times that after you fell, you learned and you got up. You learn from the lesson. You learn from the experience. And you get up and you keep going. It's the ones that fall and refuse to get up because they beat themselves so much of guilt of, oh man, I should have done this, and that they stay down and they bring others down with them because misery loves company. But a righteous man, he gets up because he realizes this is a fight. And you realizing you going round for round for round for round with your own self and then other powers that are outside of you, and a world that is fallen, a world that is secular. And when I say fallen, I'm talking about the corruption that is in this planet. It is running rampant. You can just turn on the TV and see this. So the battle in which we wage in, the war that we fight in, you can't afford to stay stagnant. You can't afford to keep running in place and trying to make people think that you're really getting somewhere, but you're really not. It looks like you're doing something, but you're not going nowhere. It's a difference between me hiking up a mountain, right? And somebody in the gym and doing it on a machine. It's 2 different things. Because when you out there and you really going up that mountain, there is more stress that is being placed on your body. You know why? Because it's a rugged terrain. It's a different ball game than when you in the gym. 2 different things. So I'm sharing this because a lot of people don't understand the ramifications behind the things that I say and what I'm trying to devote to the community. They don't understand. So you bring libations up and they think that I'm doing this simply because I want to be different or simply because it's a West African practice. And I told y'all, the Israelite culture is African, and that landmass continent of Africa does not just consist of Ham. Shem is on there too. We went over this before. But when we say African, there's a distinction between it and Asia, Europe, and all the other places on this planet. And the lecture that I did, where I talked about the time capsule, the Israelite model in West Africa, I showed y'all this. And it seems that when I brought this information out, when we talk about libations, in their mind, they think it all is African. We shouldn't be doing it. And I'm like, what? You know, but yet some of these people, they have lived in Africa. But yet when we talk about an African ritual that the Israelites themselves have done, according to the literature that we read and the narrative that we follow, they've done the same thing. The only time the Most High rejects it is when it's done unrighteously. Matter of fact, the Most High even told the Israelites, I don't want to have nothing to do with your feast days. I don't want none of your sacrifices. I don't care about your new moons and I don't care about these things. You know why? Because you're doing it with a corrupt heart. Does that mean that if you decide that you want to reinstitute it, you could do it? Yes. You know my evidence for that? Remember when Israel, they went into Babylonian captivity? 2 times they were sieged and went into captivity. 587 BCE, 597 BCE. Excuse me, 597 BCE, 587 BCE. They was in Babylon for 70 years. And the Most High called to them. Zerubbabel responded to the call and became that signet ring that the Most High took off Yachanan because he was disobedient. Joachim, he was disobedient. But the Most High restored it with Zerubbabel responded. And then we had Ezra and Nehemiah come back. And what did they do? They rebuilt the wall, they rebuilt the temple, and they restored the city of Jerusalem. And when they did this, they reinstituted the things that they ceased from doing for 70 years. When the Most High said through the Nebaim, I reject all of that. I don't want none of this. I don't want none of that. And he said all of that. But guess what? They restored it, and the Most High honored that. That's interesting. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. So he honored that because now, because they was whooped for 70 years, coming back, they was obedient. So then he decided, I'm going to receive these things once more. When Israel decided, and we're talking about the southern tribes now. The northern tribes are totally different ballgame. Southern tribes went disobedient again, and the Most High got them expelled out the land. The last expulsion was in 4th century AD. Scattered, fully scattered. Now we have a situation where they are still keeping some of their customs with them. When I went into Eldad Hadani, I explained to y'all how he talked about the differences between the northern tribes, him being a Danite, the northern tribes in Africa, how they were distinct from the other Jews in Africa, i.e. the Algerian Jews. He made the distinction. He saw that there was two different sets that was there in Africa. Northern Africa being where you have a lot of the Yahudim, and everywhere else, mostly everywhere else, more so in Balad al-Sudan or Western Sudan, West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa. We have, or even in interior Africa, we have Israelites that are there that have certain distinct practices from the Israelites that was there in the north. And I explained why that's the case. I broke all of that down. So it's very funny that we have people in our community that have an issue with libation, even though it's in the Tanakh. It's in the Tanakh. Had it upside down. It's crazy. It's in the Tanakh. I do a video on casting lots, and I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave the libation thing alone. It's crazy. It's crazy. But you see the extent that people will go to discredit you to the point where they reject what they're doing. That's interesting. And say, oh, we got to re-examine everything. We got to look at things over again, and we got to do the lens of Torah. What do you think I got libations from? Where do you think I got that from? You know what I'm saying? Whatever. So then we have a cast and lot situation. So I brought the cast, and this is not going to stop here. There's other rituals I'm going to bring out. I'm just teasing with these things first, right? And teasing because I'm demonstrating it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we have an enemy that's trying to assimilate us, that is sending an ancient provocateurs amongst us, that are people that are being sent to subterfuge what it is that we're doing, to undermine it, to overthrow it from within. Because now they see a situation where we have a particular distinct way of carrying out our culture. See, some people are not in this for the culture. That's fine. Some people in it because they just like the language. So they analyze and break down the language. Some people in it because they want to be religious, right? They want to feel like they're doing a duty, to some higher power, right? Some people are in this because they were taught that is the right thing to do. People are in this for totally different reasons. I don't knock them for what they do. But when they begin to knock me for what I do, then I push back. But I do so respectively. And I don't have to bring out names when I do it. The reason why I brought up those two sisters' names because that show is out there publicly. So you can go back and check it out. But I do this for culture. Culture is the immune system of a people. If you do not have a systematic cultural precedent that is set within your community, that establishes morals, values, code of ethics, a way that you're self-governed so that you don't need to always rely on entities outside of self, the way that you eat, the things that you eat, the way that you dress, if you don't have these things that make you distinct, then you might as well hang it up. And that's one thing that I will say that Christianity has done or attempted to do by means of Christendom, not all types of Christianity, which is to erase those cultural boundaries, just erase them and say we all one in Christ. That's it. Judaism, through proselytization today, attempts to do the same thing. Give up who you are and join us. I'm not with it. I'm not here to play with this. This is life. This is what I live. This is what I do. This is what I breathe. This is what I sleep. This is what I do. So some people are not in it for the culture. Some people are in it for the religion. Some people are in it because they just want to study it, right? Some people are in it just because they want to be religious. That's not why I do this. I do this because there is a war going on, and that war is a war of think tanks. We don't have many think tanks in our community. That is a detriment to our success and our survival. Something needs to be done about that. So in order for me to become a think tank, I have to look at things much differently as a scope and say, what's the best way to implement culture to protect the values of my community? I must restore something to them. And once I restore something, not what they developed being here in America, not what they were given, not what they're trying to acclimate, but something that was already theirs. It's in your DNA. And you can epigenetically express it. And that's all I'm trying to do, bring it out. So when we talk about casting lots, you see people playing CeeLo in the hood. You talking about pouring libations, you see people pouring liquor for their dead homies. These are practices that we were doing already. We just didn't know the significance of it. Same thing goes for those from West Africa. Same thing. So what I'm trying to explain is that a lot of people don't see the big picture, but it's okay. I'm not going to stop because they don't see the big picture. I'm not going to get offended and say, oh, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm bitter. I don't have time for that. If you want to get angry, you want to get upset, you want to get bitter with me or anything else, you be my guest. I don't have time for that. There's a community that is dying that needs to be restored, and culture can help do it. Because you know what culture does? It brings them back to Yah. You know what culture does? It gives them an obligation. You know what culture does? It gives them back purpose. You know what culture does? It allows them to reinstitute honor for the family unit as well as the elders. That's what culture does. It protects them from the evils within themselves. That's what culture does. It helps them to identify what is the norm from what is genetically in me that's being expressed, as opposed to what is something that is acting as a leech trying to suck me dry. Something that looks like it's real and authentic, but it's not. It's vain. This is what I'm trying to express to you, Israel. My family that's out there. Culture protects you. Culture establishes you. And when you can get rid of the rhetoric, the religion, the dogma, right? Then you can start to embrace culture. Because you understand that it's something that is already in you. You just have to bring it out. So people see that I'm bringing out libation and casting lots and I'm going to stone altars and people see this stuff and it bothers them. They only dealing with the religion. They don't see the culture. They don't understand the culture. So I'll bump heads with them on occasion. Y'all know I'm tactful and diplomatic. I can work with anybody. But then it's going to be where we have our personal differences and people are going to tread upon what it is that I'm putting out. That's fine. Like I said, I did the cast and lots video. You know what I'm saying? That video was a little shaky in the middle towards the end, so I apologize for that. But a lot of y'all watched it anyway, and I got a lot of great feedback from it. But then again, I got some people that had issues with it, and that's fine. This is generating conversation within our community. So many things I was putting forth that generated conversation and a buzz within the community. The objective is to start to innovate what's in the mind so we can pull away from religion and get back to our culture, innovation, methodology, research, not taking everything that you hear that somebody's telling you or what somebody's teaching you and have no way to verify it. That's why I encourage our community to get into archaeology. I encourage them to get into history. I encourage them to get into the language of the literature. I encourage them to look at other comparative culture. I encourage them to do these things because you can fact check what it is that I'm saying for yourself. I want to push you in that direction to be great. There's exponential potential that is deep inside of you. And all I'm doing is showing you what it is, where it is, how to get it, so you can take it out and do something with it. That's it. It's not my job to bring everybody to the finish line. I'll do what I can. But what I'm doing is equipping you so you can make it there for yourself. So it's a much deeper thing than what people think. I don't try to be controversial. For what? It's not that serious. But when I come across something and I've done extensive research on it, and I know it for myself to be something that is established, I'm going to give it to the community. And y'all can do whatever you want with it. Either you accept it or reject it. It's up to y'all. It's up to y'all. But to me, just for people just to outrightly reject it and the argumentation they use against it is just like, I just got to shake my head. It's like, all right, well, cool. You don't want to do it? No problem. You ain't got to do it. That's that. That's that. So, let me move forward. Let me check the chat real quick. Let me check the chat real quick. I don't know what's going on with y'all. Let me check the chat real quick. Shout out to the Black Av1 in the building, Mariel Ben Yahuwah in the building, the Most High Child, Shaya Rala the second, my brother in the building, Cherie Huey in the building. Shout out to Cherie Huey. Who else is in here? My brother Shama Talmido in the building. Don Terry, Gregory Atwell. Still waiting for my stones. Kokab Tafari. I think I got everybody. All right. Oh, Yehoshua Shamar. Shout out to Yehoshua Shamar. 7 is set apart. Shalom. Peace. Myron Henderson. Myron, that's a good question. But I've touched on this before. Go back and check on some of my videos. And people in the chat can point you to the videos that you can look at to give you like more information on that. All right. Shout out to Eric Laquette, Khan Truth, Dwayne Yosef, Cheryl, Akita. Let's see. Esau's the devil. I think that's everybody. Boss McGee, Shalom, Jojo, Myron Henderson. I think I got everybody. All right, family. Let's keep going. Let's keep it moving. Marielle, I want to go to Juneteenth, but I may not be able to because I have an important meeting tomorrow. So I may not be able to go. And then I work in the evenings, late evenings on Saturday. So I may not be able to go. I want to go, but I may not be able to go. But if I don't go, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be there next year. You know what I mean? Shout out to Tanika West in the building as well. Yes, embrace methodology, history, culture, language, and fact check it. That's true. Shout out to Ashan. So a lot of people, who teach don't want you fact checking the things that they're saying. I have nothing to lose. If you fact check and what I'm saying is incorrect to you, you ain't got to listen to nothing else that I have to say. I don't oblige anybody to listen to what I'm saying. I don't. I just put it out there. If people like it, say, man, this helped me in my walk, cool. Some people may say, hey, look, can I join KHM because I want to get some more information and I want to get involved in the community. Cool, let's do it. So it's to each his own. That's all it is. No biggie. You know what I'm saying? It's no biggie. The Black F one, I don't know if I've seen all of that video. Send it to me again. I'll go ahead and check it out. I'll check it out. All right. 7 Set Apart says, can you drop the link for the 10 Commandments necklace? Yeah, let me do that for you. Hold on. I got you. I got you. Here you go. Let me support the sister. Custom designs by Sister Riri. Here you go. Here's the link right there. It's in the chat. All right. Kyle Cameras. That's an excellent question. There is a lot of works on that. There's a lot of books on that. I have to send you some. You're gonna have to harass me until I give it to you, and I'll send you some on that. But that's a great question in regards to Israel and Edom. Before you can even get into that, you have to study the Maccabean revolt, and you got to look at the relationship between the Edomites and and the Yahudim. You know what I'm saying? That they had an uneasy alliance, and a lot of Edomites were being converted so that they can side with the Yahudim and fighting against the Greeks. So that's, you got to study there first and see then later on after after the Maccabean revolt and we have the Hasmonean dynasty, when that started to taper off because of infighting and infiltration, then we have a situation when the Edomites then sided with Rome, right? And then you see the Rome and the Edomites connection where we have people like Herod. He gets placed into power. And now the Edomites is used as a buffer against the Yahudim, right? Or the so-called Jews. So it's a very interesting history. And you got to study politically why the Maccabean revolt happened and how the Hasmonean dynasty was established. You got to study that era first to even understand anything that has happened in the so-called New Testament, right? So as far as casting lots, Shama Talmido. So typically what you do is you get three answers, right? You get Cain, Khan, or low, which is yes or no, and then you get neutral, right? Those are the three answers. So you have a 50% chance of getting neutral, 25% chance of getting yes, 25% chance of getting no. If you cast it and it says yes, great. If it says no, great. If it comes out neutral, then you wait and you cast again at another time, right? So you can get the yes or the no answer. But the purpose of the neutral is telling you to hold off on a definitive yes or a definitive no. Hold off on what it is you're inquiring about, because you'll realize that as time progresses, there's a reason why you're holding off. Now, you don't hold off with the intent like, okay, I'm just going to wait. No, you hold off and you continue on what you're doing. And the Most High reveals things to you. So when you cast them again, the results will come out the way it intends to be. So typically, like if I was to cast it and it was a neutral, I'll wait to some later time. Maybe it could be 2 days later. It could be a week later. It won't be the same day, right? Because you typically don't see lots being cast the same day more than once. But it'll be done at a later time until I get the yes or no. So hopefully that answers your question. Jay Fearson, I've heard of that. If you have a video, post it in the chat and let me check it out. I heard of that. I heard people talking about that on Facebook. Right. And I also saw TD Jakes in Igbo garb. It's really interesting seeing that. Really, really interesting seeing that. Do you have any videos or research on the history of the Sadducees and Pharisees? Yes, I do. That lecture I told you about, the patriarchal priesthood in the Bible unveiled. If you watch part 2, I talk about the history of the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Zealots and the Essenes. I talk about all these groups. So go back to that lecture and watch part 2, my brother Mariel. All right. I agree, Boaz. I agree. All right. So again, thank you for tuning in. You can keep asking questions. Now, let me transition. Man, there's a lot of different things I wanted to say tonight, but I see it's getting extremely late, and I want to try to get some rest. So, I want to transition into two more things, and they're kind of like related, but there's like several other things I want to talk about, but I'll save this for next week. All right. So for now, what I want to talk about is on my Facebook page, right? Let me show y'all what I put up on my Facebook page. And it's interesting because this is not really getting a lot of attention like I thought it would get, but it's okay. It's okay. And this is why I say, again, think tank. People really in our community don't understand the relevance of why I'm putting out the information I put out. Is a big picture involved. Big picture involved. Big picture involved. Because, we're not fighting ignorant enemies no more. We definitely are not. And I realize that sometimes in order to restore our culture, you have to fight a fight. You got to win that fight, and then people will take you seriously. And the best way to do it is to get on a apologetic position. Sometimes you can go on the offensive, but most of the time, being an Israelite, you're mostly going to be on the defensive a lot, right? Because you come against Jews, you come against Christians, you come against the romanticists in the Kemetic community, you come against atheists, you come against Muslims, you come against Hindus, Buddhists. people who keep who study Taoism, Shintoism, all of that. You come against all of these things, and the number one issue that they have is your claim of identity. That's the number one problem. The doctrine is secondary. Primary, they have an issue with your claim as being a descendant of the ancestors, the Israelites. They have an issue with that. They have a big problem with that. They cannot accept that. That's where the great amount of the attack is at. And I've done my best to put out enough information to buffer against that, right? To rebut and in some instances refute some of the things that they're saying. But the information I put out is so pertinent for our advancement that sometimes, unfortunately, it goes over some people's heads. And there's some people that do catch it. Like a lot of y'all that's in this chat, y'all do catch it. And then y'all realize the value in it, right? But let me show you what it is that I'm talking about. And this is a lecture that I've been working on. And once it's done, I'm going to present it to y'all, okay? But let me go ahead and show it to y'all so you can see some of this information. This is, like I said, a lot of this information is groundbreaking for our community, right? Okay, so let me show this. Let me go through this. Then I'm gonna deal with another matter, and then I'm gonna let y'all ask a few questions, and I'm out of here. All right. So let me show y'all this real quick. Hold on. Zoom in one more time. Let's do 200. There we go. All right, because I have to do this because so y'all can see it. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me pull this out, and I'm gonna show y'all. I'm gonna show y'all this real quick. Let me scroll up. Let me scroll over. All right. And this is for y'all who are not Facebook friends with me, because I realize that a lot of people that are on YouTube don't have Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube, right? So I made this post, and I know some of y'all in here that follow KHM can appreciate this. And then we're gonna deal with this language thing. I'm gonna talk on the language thing real quick. I'm gonna show y'all in there, and then we out of here, right? So let me show y'all this real quick. Hold on, let me show y'all this real quick. All right, let me go ahead and let me share my screen. Before I do, all right, so hold on, let me show you my screen. All right, here we go. All right, this is Facebook, okay? So you can see. So I said this about 19 hours ago. It says, holistic knowledge of historical anthropology consists of material and non-material cultural studies. It requires an interdisciplinary assessment that helps to narrow the scope to a more precise understanding of ancient peoples. Literature and archaeology help to piece puzzles together, and I meant to say piece singular, puzzles together that otherwise alone they wouldn't be able to. Take this into account when you approach your research. I have an upcoming lecture that will help to bridge the gap between these two disciplines to further elaborate on the purpose of this post. In the interim, read the images attached. Shalom. So, family, what I'm saying here about material culture and non-material culture is extremely important. It's an interdisciplinary assessment when you look at both material and non-material cultural studies in order for you to piece together the lives of ancient peoples, okay? And literature and archaeology help to do this together in a fashion that if you just knowledgeable about the literature, you'd be missing the other aspect. If you just knowledgeable about the archaeology and didn't know the literature, you'd be. So what I try to do is I try to learn both the language of the text and I try to learn about the evidence in the archaeology. And when I do learn in these two different ways, I bring this information together. I marry it together. And what this does is that this gives me a more holistic perspective of what has transpired. And this is extremely important, extremely important. All right. So I'm sharing with y'all some of my methodology. And what I did was I brought this up. Now, the reason why I brought this up is because there's a lecture that I'm doing that's going to help to validate the Exodus, right? It's interesting. It's really good. So help to validate Exodus even more. I put out a slew of videos addressing the Exodus and giving forth my position in Exodus. And there's a lot of good information that helps to defend the position of the Exodus that occur. But this lecture is going to push it even further. But not just that, but also show you that my methodological approach and how I come to my conclusion is a marriage between the literature and archaeology. The literature being the non-material culture and the archaeology being material culture, and how you see both of them overlapping into one another. At times it seems like they are asymmetrical, right? Or that they don't intertwine, or that they're not harmonious. And what it does is that when you have a very rigorous methodology, and you're able to inductively analyze things from the ground up without the preconceived notion or presuppositions that you've been given or that you've developed previously, you'll be able to start to see the connections between everything. It's like one single needle of thread that's weaving everything, the fabric, two different fabrics together, so it can make one big piece. So a lot of times you got people that are so heavy on one end and they get lopsided on the other, and they can never get that balance, so that way they can start to explain certain things that one lane cannot do by itself. This is a holistic approach to anthropology, a holistic. And I don't just stop with the literature and archaeology. There's other things that I utilize too, but those are my two favorites that I go to. And I'm getting deeper and further into both my studies and of both. So that way I can even bring more stuff out. And not just bring stuff out, being able to reconcile nuances that throw things off when you read the text or look at the archaeological record. And it's like, man, why is that strange right there? How do I explain that? And then you dive deeper and like, oh, now I know. Now I understand. But let's go through this real quick. And then I'm going to go into the language thing that I want to talk on, and then take a couple of questions and I'm out of here. All right. So let me make sure y'all behaving in the chat. I think y'all good in the chat. All right. Shout out to young AK who just jumped in. All right. All right, family. Let me get into this, and hopefully y'all enjoy what it is that I'm saying, and we can get back on track. All right. So first thing is this article that I grabbed. I grabbed some information so that I can start to explain material culture. Because remember, the lecture I'm going to explain to you is going to help further validate the Exodus by examining material culture in the literature and be able to validate it outside the literature by doing comparative cultural studies and looking into archaeology. This is deep, family. This is deep. This is deep. Let's read it. This is called Material Culture in Egypt and Nubia, right? Egyptology. Hold on, let me give you a full screen. It's probably better this way. Hold on. If I can move over somehow. Well, maybe that's not better. Let me click it. Don't worry about it. Let me just read it. All right. It says material culture in Egypt and Nubia. Egyptology is still a text-centered discipline with stress on historical and political interpretations derived from textual sources rather than on the things. You're going to see what those things are, which ancient Egyptians used. These are equal source to inform on life's reality of ancient Egyptians, as well as on social and economic history and relationships. In this light, a discrepancy in theoretical applications exists between an archaeological remains that constitute a large portion of ancient Egyptian heritage and texts in the widest sense, many of which express political processes and opinions. Keep that in mind. These texts are written by elite members and for a socially restricted group who were able to read. This research group, whilst not ignoring the textual evidence, focuses on the evidence from things in order to test it with source groups transmitting political aspects. And this way, differences and similarities of these source types will be highlighted and more information on social and cultural processes obtained. Okay, let's keep going. Material culture and material cultural theory offer a wide range of opportunities to evaluate archaeological finds, importantly within their contents to gain independent means of interpretation. Basic considerations stressing the importance of objects are the rejection of the Western idea. Now, this is for some reason. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. I got it. The Western idea that human beings should be divorced from the things they are surrounded with, considering the intellectual sphere as superior. Please keep this in mind. The Western mindset wants you to be philosophical, wants you to be so highly metaphysical that you miss the concrete world around you, that you're not in touch with the concrete world around you. You're not in touch with nature that's around you. You're not in touch with the glory of Yah, which is his creation, right? This is what culture brings you back to, the concrete elements of reality. This is important. This is written by an Egyptologist, by an entire institute that's talking about that have identified the Western idea that we have to be so intellectually superior by means of ad infinitum reasoning, right? To the point where you get so philosophical, you're so in the clouds that you miss the concrete stuff around you. And this is what religion does to you as well. Religion will make you philosophize till the cows come home and believe in blind faith and not be able to support any of the claims that you're making. Okay, let's keep going. Human beings have relationships with material culture even before the ability to speak. Things express actions, processes, and are not the consequence of an idea. This is extremely important, family. Please, please absorb this. Hence, objects are influenced by their maker and their user, whilst the object exerts influence on its user as well, creating an interdependency. Histories of objects and people are tied together and become parts of biographies of individuals. Depending on this history, objects and situations become memories and personal perception. In this respect, Bardou's habitus, mediating social structure and individual agency, is important. Habitus represents durable and internalized dispositions, i.e., to act in certain ways influenced by structures of material conditions that unconsciously structure the actions of an individual and through which the individual structures his or her environment. This process is continuously reproduced. Things, the material culture, or the actual artifacts that were left behind, found in a variety of contexts, inform about material aspects of culture and the relationships to individuals who use those things, and represent a source also for archaeology. Family, this is one of the most important things that I can give back to our community. It's the fact that a lot of us is so heavily dependent on the literature alone that you miss the concrete reality of what is going on today, what went on in the past, and what's going to go on in the future. This is extremely important. This is why I push culture. This is why I implement archaeology along with the literature, family, in order to restore culture. This is important. Read this over several times. You can take your time and go through it. There's so much deepness that has been said in here. It is out of this world. But my lecture will hopefully be able to simplify some of these things so you can be able to better identify it. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. If I was an author, hold on, let me bring it back. Let me bring it back to you. Let me get it back to the screen, read the rest of it, right? So, if I was an author and I wrote a book, and this book that I wrote, I say it's based on true events about my life. Maybe let's say it's an autobiography. Okay. So let's say I wrote an autobiography as an author. And this autobiography that I wrote was like a rag to riches story, right? And it was like, had so many ups and downs. It was like a roller coaster, and it was a great work. I had so much figurative language in there. I was literal at some points. It was just a deep book, and it became the New York Times bestseller, right? Let's say that's the case. And let's say, for example, I die, right? And let's say after I die, they come and they, take over my apartment. And what they do is they take all the items out of my apartment. The interesting thing is, or let's say house, let's say apartment, let's say it's a house that I lived in for years, right? That I have built, whatever. So they come into my house and they examine everything, that documents I left behind, my computer, my TV, my clothes, the stuff that was in my fridge. Let's say that I was talking highly about veganism, but yet when they went into my fridge, they see fish in there. They see chicken in there. Let's say I was talking so highly about wearing the best apparel out there, but then they come into my home and they see I had modest apparel in there. Let's say that, for example, I said, well, I never watch so-and-so, and they come to my house and they see some DVDs of that. They see the bed that I slept on, right? They saw my bathroom. They saw the stuff I put in my garbage. So what happens is now we can fact check what I said in my autobiography by looking at the concrete evidence. It's the same thing with a trial. You have eyewitnesses who claim to have seen something, and you have the physical evidence that's there at the scene. But when you're able to harmonize the two, you get a greater picture of what occurred. So what I'm attempting to do is bring these things together so you can fact check the archaeology with the literature, fact check the literature, the archaeology, harmonize it, and be able to get a holistic worldview as it pertains to culture, material and non-material. This is extremely important. Extremely important, family. Extremely important. What they want you to do is be so high on the literature that you chase your own tail and you're never able to stabilize and say, wow, the purpose of me, or our forefather ancestors doing so and so is because they lived like this. This was heavily influential to why the text was written the way it is, and the text give further explanation to the concrete evidence because it can only speak but so much for itself. This is incredible. How can we prove that Israel actually carried out these statutes, laws, and commandments, as it says in the literature? When we go back to the archaeology, we see that their diet, as it lines up with the book of Leviticus, was correct. You don't find no pig bones or no unclean foods in Israelite sites. Interesting. Also, we have a situation at the Yavne Yam Astrakhan that we recovered, and in that Yavne Yam, it talks about a employer taking the employee's cloak from him and keeping it overnight or indefinitely until the quota was met by the employee. We have an Astrakhan with this written on it. How do we know that Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh was the chief patron deity of the region and the cities that's mentioned in the scriptures? Because we have archaeology that attests for it. We have the Lachish letters that speak about that. We have the Telerad letters, right? We have several other pieces of evidence where we see Yod-Heh-Wav and Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Interesting. Interesting. We use it to fact check each other. We use it to harmonize it. And we use it to get a holistic worldview of what's going on. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's a great way of analyzing your ancestors' legacy that you today are picking up the mantle for and trying to move forward. Let me finish reading this for y'all. Finish when we move on. Okay. All right, let me get to the next one. All right, this way I can read for y'all. I hate when it keeps shifting like that. Okay, let me read this for y'all. All right, here we go. Sociologists describe two interrelated aspects of human culture: the physical objects of the culture and the ideas associated with these objects. And if you know what a fetish is an idea that is tied to an object. Go back and research that, right? Material culture refers to the physical objects, resources, and spaces that people use to define their culture. These include homes, neighborhoods, cities, schools, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, offices, factories, implants, tools, means of production, goods and product stores, and so forth. All of the physical aspects of a culture help to define its members' behaviors and perceptions. For example, technology is a vital aspect of material culture in today's United States. American students must learn to use computers to survive in college and business, in contrast to young adults in the Yanomamo society in the Amazon who must learn to build weapons and hunt. Non-material culture refers to the non-physical ideas that people have about their culture, including beliefs, values, rules, norms, morals, language, organizations, and institutions. For instance, the non-material cultural concept of religion consists of a set of, oh man, I don't have the other part of it. Well, consists of a set of ideas in which the elite or the scribe or the priestly class has created in regards to the mental construct and social construct and the political construct in which they want the general populace to fall in line with and to follow. All right. So when you get to study these two things, you realize that you need to look into the material culture and non-material culture in order to better understand what is transpiring in regards to these ancient peoples. This is what sociologists do today. This is what anthropologists do. This is what they do. So if you want a holistic worldview of what's going on, you cannot stick solely with the literature. You cannot stick solely with the archaeology. You must marry material and non-material cultural elements in order to fully engage the time capsule that these people left behind, that we call our ancestors. The next one goes a little bit more deep. It says the study of material cultural centers upon objects, their properties, and the materials that they are made of, and the ways in which these material facets are central to an understanding of culture and social relations. It challenges the historical division between the natural sciences as being the place for the study of the material world and the social sciences as being where society and social relations can be understood. Instead, culture and society are seen as being created and reproduced by the ways in which people make, design, and interact with objects. It also challenges the assumption perpetuated by disciplinary divisions and also philosophical trajectories, keep that in mind, that the object and subject are separate, wherein the latter is assumed to be immaterial and the former assumed to be inert and passive, and seeing the material properties of things as central to the meanings an object might have. Much work within material cultural studies is critical of the idea that objects merely symbolize or represent aspects of a pre-existing culture or identity. A key area of contestation in the literature on material culture is the question of agency. We mentioned that before, and ways in which objects can produce particular effects or allow and permit certain behaviors or cultural practices. This is developed through the concept of objectification, which is central to many studies of material culture, albeit differently conceived depending upon the disciplinary and theoretical stance taken, which explores the intertwined and often dialectic relationships between people and things. Those who study material culture are situated in a wide range of disciplines such as archaeology, anthropology, geography, history, design, sociology, which I include all of this in my lectures, right? Although material culture studies cross many disciplines, there are still theories, methods, and perspectives that are firmly located within particular disciplines. Understandings of material culture have been central to anthropology since its inception. Egyptology, oh, I did this already. All right, so let's stop there. Let me sum this up, and explain why I'm talking. Why am I even talking about this? What relevance does this have to anything? All right. Let me check on y'all in the chat real quick. Let me get back into this. All right. All right. If y'all enjoying this, I want y'all to hit one. If y'all enjoying this, hit one, and let me keep going. Otherwise, I'll just segue into doing something else. All right. But just let me know. All right. Ashan, hit me, email me. I won't be discussing that right now on this session, but just email me. Yes, there is. There is a natural way to shrink it. If it's a benign tumor, there is a natural way that it can be shrunk. So definitely email me at kingdomharbor@gmail.com, or you can email naturopath to Eden. And see what we can do to assist you on that. All right. All right. So I only see a few ones. I don't see a lot of thumbs up. So hit one and a thumbs up, family, so I know that you're enjoying what I'm disseminating, so that way I can continue. Okay. Definitely I can continue. Hit one and hit that thumbs up, family. All right. If you're enjoying this. Okay. So now let me kind of sum up. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we don't hear a lot of people discuss this in our community, right? This is, when I say this is like one of the top 10 things that we must understand in order for us to practice the customs that we practice today, to keep the tradition that we have today. This is extremely important. I know some of the things I may have said may have sounded very deep, might have been some big words, but as you get acclimated with these terms and as you continue to follow this channel, I put videos out where I discuss, I contrast, I juxtapose, I compare these things, and I give an overall perspective on what's going on. Okay, so Mario, yes, I could probably talk about that. I've had a couple of requests for that, so I could probably touch on that sometime in the future. So thank y'all, family, for enjoying. Thank y'all for the thumbs up as well. Let me continue so I can see if I can get a question or two and then end this off. All right. And please, family, if you can keep the questions centered on the actual stuff that I'm discussing tonight, and then I'll do an open Q&A at a later time. Okay. All right, family. Thank y'all for the ones and the thumbs up. All right. So the reason why I'm doing this is because this is in order for people to say, Divine Man, you have a very unique perspective. How did you get to that conclusion? And this is how I get to it. I marry two different things, and it gives me a greater picture, right? So the reason why I'm doing this is because the next lecture I'm going to do is going to help to validate the Exodus, right? The claim of the Exodus, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you material culture and non-material culture. So a representation of non-material culture is literature, right? A representation of material culture is objects that are in the environment that the literature is speaking about, that is actually real outside of the literature. It's nothing that's fake, nothing that's made up. It's something that's literally there. So the lecture I'm going to show you guys is that there are a lot of Egyptian loanwords that are there in the Torah, and a lot of these loanwords pertain to material cultural items. And the only way that these items could be identified by the scribe is if they were living, listen to this, in Mizraim or Egypt or Kemet during the time frame in which the text was written. Because a lot of these things were, now look at this. Look how, I'm going to try to show you how profound this is, right? I'm going to show you how profound this is. And this, I mean, when people start to say that, oh, the Tanakh is a Greco-Roman work that was put together, I just shake my head, because this is not what academia says. This is only people in a conscious community. They say stuff like this. Academia don't even argue this, because the stuff that I'm sharing with you, they understand, they know this. Okay. So the fact that, and I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm talking about, right? Listen, watch this. I'm gonna give you a great example of what I'm talking about. Let's say, for example, the Gullah Geechee, right? Y'all know about the Gullahs, the Geechees, right? I did a lecture where I talked about the Gullahs, right? So let's say the Gullahs, right? The Gullah peoples, right? When you listen to the Gullah people talk, the way that they speak, their dialect is extremely profound, right? But they have in their language words preserved from their ancestors who came from West Africa that are still in their vocabulary today. They have foods that they eat today that comes from their ancestors, right? Before they were disconnected from the continental landmass of Africa and brought over here to America. They have a way that they dress. They have songs that they sing, dances that they do. All of these things are perfectly preserved from their ancestors when they were brought here before they got brought over here to America. So now, let's say a young individual in the 21st century is growing up in this Gullah Geechee culture. Let's say they are not exposed to technology in any way, but they decided that they wanted to write a book or biography on their community. And they wrote this biography and they didn't know, let's say for example, they wrote this biography and people say, oh, they're not really from Africa. Let's say they say that they're not really from Africa. They're not descended from ancestors from Africa. Let's say somebody makes that argument, right? And let's say they write a biography of their community about the dances, the songs, the food, the words that they preserve in their language. And some words that they have in their language, let's say some of them are loan words from another tribe in West Africa that they neighbored, right? That we had a culturation was taking place, right? Watch how profound this is. So let's say they write this book and they have only no traditions that was handed down to them, oral traditions, right? Customs and practices. This is all they know, right? They've never been to West Africa to validate what it is that they're saying. It's just contained in the biography. So let's say a sociologist, an anthropologist, let's say somebody decided that, hey, you know what? I want to research this community, right? And this person has been to Egypt. They've studied these things and they go and they read this, and Caribbean people too, and I agree. Caribbean people too. That's a great point. And we see this also of the Maroons in Jamaica. The Maroons in Jamaica have preserved so much of their Akan culture, and a lot of them haven't even been to West Africa to even meet anybody from the Akan tribe, which is the parent tribe, and there's tribes that break up underneath them, like the Asante peoples, right? So, and this is where those Maroons came from. They came from the Akan peoples and most of the Asante peoples, right? So that's another conversation. But what I'm saying is, a person who studies this stuff, they come and they read this book, they say, wow, I've been to West Africa and I see this culture. Now I'm reading this book and these people have perfectly preserved so many customs that are there in West Africa. For somebody to say that they never descended from there, it is apparent that whoever's making that claim do not know what they're talking about. They have no clue what they're talking about. This is what we find with the Torah as it pertains to the Exodus, family. I'm going to leave that alone. A lot of the information that I just spoke on earlier, that's going to be in this lecture. Then I'm going to give you the loan words in this lecture. I'm going to give you the context of those loan words. I'm going to give you the chronology of those loan words. I'm going to give you the environment in which those things happen so you know exactly where to pin. I'm going to give you all of this information. Material, non-material, cultural studies, being married together in order to present for you a brand new case for the Exodus. Who in our community is doing this? I'm trying to push innovation so that people, once they listen and they read and they watch, they can do better than me. They can do better than me. I'm just paving the way and sacrificing myself in the process so people won't have the same hardships and they can get faster to the destination. All right? So, man, that's deep. This is really deep. And I'm going to take my time with this lecture. I still got the henotheism lecture I'm doing, right? The divine council lecture. I'm still going to do that one. I still owe y'all that one. But this next one that I'm going to do, I think y'all really going to appreciate that. Hold on, family. Give me 1 second. I'm just looking at something real quick. All right. So, let's transition. I think I still got some time. But anyway, that type of stuff, family, when y'all see that I'm silent, I'm not really saying much, trust me, something is always brewing up here. I'm always thinking on how can I innovate and bring, better information to the community to advance us forward, right? Because I'm tired of being stuck behind. I mean, I go to some people's pages and some people's channels, and it's the same redundant stuff over and over again. It's like you're not learning anything new. You're not really being pushed, into a path of spirituality any better. That's why when you watch Kingdom Harvard Ministry, there's so much variety in the content that's on here, because I'm trying to cover all bases, right? If you come here because you want to learn something new about archaeology, we got it. Well, you want to learn something about the statute and commandments, we got it. You want to learn something about a subject matter in regards to our culture, we got it. You want a word of edification, encouragement, empowerment, we got it. You want to know, or how can I get involved in the community, we got it. You want a blueprint, we got it. So we try to give you all of these tools so you can be greater. So I sacrifice, me and KHM, we sacrifice our time, our energy, our effort, sacrifice sleepless nights. I work almost 54 hours every week. 54 hours. Think about that. Almost 54 hours every week. That's a lot of hours to be working. Every week I work. Then I have a family on top of that. Then on top of my family, then I have Kingdom KHM that I have to oversee. Then on top of that, I have other responsibilities and other things that I try to do. Trust me, I'm being spread thin. But you know what? It is well worth it. Because if at least one or two people get it, and I thank y'all every time somebody gets it, and I say, now that you have it, make something out of it. It's not just enough that you're regurgitating what it is that I've taught you, I've shared with you. What are you doing with it? How is it transforming your character? How is it making you a better individual in your community? How is it reshaping how you thought about your culture and engaging it and being able to absorb it into your nefesh, your soul, and allow it to become part of you? This thing is a game changer. It's a paradigm shift. And it's hitting like an earthquake, and a lot of people cannot hold on. But it's okay. Hopefully one day people will get it, and they won't get it at the last minute. So this is what my niche is, and this is what I'm pushing towards, because this helps strengthen the community so we can become autonomous. So like I said, even if you don't see a lot from me, there's always something brewing. And this is egged on from your support, whether it's financial support, whether it's your prayers, whether you guys are sharing this, whether you guys are giving me words of encouragement, sharing information with me, however the case may be, it's only you guys that'll keep me going. And y'all's using you guys to keep me steady. So I have to always thank you guys, express my love and my appreciation and the value that I place on each and every one of you that is watching this right now, whether you're watching the live in the chat or you're watching this through recording. All right. So let's get into the last thing that I want to touch on today. We get into the last thing I want to touch on today. Oh, my thing. Hold on, family. Okay, got it. Let's get into the last thing. I think this is a pretty good session. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Y'all can go back and watch it again. But I wanna go into this real quick. Hold on. And I'll have this on my Facebook page this week. I just didn't get a chance to post it up yet, so I'm just gonna speak about it off the whim. But I wanted to share it, right? So there was a Bible study that was done recently on the book of Ruth. And not just a Bible study, there was other people that were doing like personal readings on the book of Ruth. And one thing that I teach people who are engaging any book of the text is look for the cultural aspects, right? Some people look at it from a Western lens, like the book of Ruth, and look at it for romance. And, if you guys watch the interview that was done with me on sensuality and love, you see how I break that down, like how the Western world thinks and how the Eastern mind should be, right? How we should be in Eastern mind. But anyway, so I say look for the cultural elements, right? I did a whole lecture on the kinsman redeemer aspect, and I told you how the physical element of it works and how it operates spiritually, right? And that would be the 2 videos before this one, right? So anyway, I was asked a question in regards to the book of Ruth. And the question was Obed, right? Obed was the child of Ruth and Boaz, right? And Obed was taken in by Naomi, right? So the question that I was asked was the text itself, and this is why language is important, right? And I'm gonna get into this, and then I'm gonna get to my last point, and then I'm gonna get to y'all. I'm gonna take 2 questions, and I'm gonna be out, right? So language is extremely important. I never downplay learning the language of the literature because what we have today is a translation. I realize everybody does not have the time, the energy, the effort, the patience to learn the language, right? But there are certain tools you can use in order for you to get the most out of your study if you cannot truly learn the language. So I'm an advocate for learning the language. I teach the language. I help people with the language. Perfect, right? But there are things, when it comes to learning the language, some people get extremely mechanical with it, and there's no real life application, right? That is centered on Yah and reconstructing our culture. That's where I differ from a lot of people who focus in on the language. But sometimes people learn the language so that they can condescend on others. Sometimes people learn the language so that way they can, you know, not disrespect other people, but show them off or point out their flaws. Now, I can see if you're learning the language because somebody is purposely deceiving you and you want to learn it so that way you can no longer be deceived. You don't have to challenge them. But some people learn the language because they want to challenge everybody with it. And I have a big problem with that. I have a big problem with that because that is not showing or exuding humility, right? When you are challenging people because you've got a tool that is bigger than their tool. And you're like, oh, they was using this tool before and it's a small tool, but you got a big tool now. So you look what I can do with this tool that you can do. That's not how we should approach our studies, no matter what it is. It can even be a revelation that Yah gives you that nobody else has, but you feel because you got this revelation, it pumps you up and you become more pompous with it. And then you take this revelation and what you do is you impose it on other people and try to showcase a degree of superiority because at one point in time, they may have made you feel inferior. Or you may have been frustrated or disappointed by something that they teach or the way they're going about something. So you learn enough of it to get back at them. I've done that in the past before. I've done that, but I've learned the error in my ways, and Yah has humbled me, and I'm okay with that. When Yah humbles me, I'm okay with that. So I tell people that when you learn the language, don't learn it because you want to be better than other people. Don't learn it because you want to point everybody else's flaws out. Learn it because you want to transform your character. Learn it because you want to get more in depth into the center of Yah. Learn it because you understand that in order for you to fulfill your purpose, that this is one of many tools that you need in order to unlock the GPS coordinates that Yah is trying to take you. So learning the language of the literature is one element to help you advance at an even greater rate in regards to your relationship with Yah by being able to precisely decipher what was being said without having anything lost in translation, and you can fact check the translation. Now, I say all of that to say, when we get to the book of Ruth, this is why language is extremely important. Now, I have the Stone Edition Tanakh here, okay? This has the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, right? The prophets and the writings, right? So this gives you a parallel, and I can't really do what I wanted to do on screen because it comes out very blurry. So I'm just gonna read it. Let me pull it out. Where is it at? Here we go. Screen. You see? So it gives you on one side the Hebrew, and it gives you the other side an English translation, right? And what I've noticed in here is that sometimes the English translation, even in this Stone Edition Tanakh, is not accurate. And when you learn the language, you can point things like that out. Oh, almost lost my bookmark. All right. So there's two scriptures that I want to go into. And after I do this, and we're going to go into the English, we're going to go into the Hebrew. After I go into this, I'm going to transition into the Q&A, and then I'm going to end it off. I'm trying to rush through this real quick. But like I said, I'm going to do a Facebook post on this. So that way, everything that I speak about now that I may not be able to elaborate as in depth as I would like to, I will have it on Facebook, right? And those of you who have Facebook, you can go and check it out. And those of you who don't have Facebook, I'll follow it up another time, right? But I want to show you guys how learning the language has benefits and being able to better understand the text, because sometimes the translation can be misleading, right? Or it may not be accurate. So I'm gonna show you a case in which this is. So I had some individuals reach out to me in regards to a Bible study they did in the book of Ruth, and they was reading chapter 4. And let me read the English translation first, right? Let me see if this the English translation here, because I was reading from Critical Edition Bible. So okay. All right. So this also has this also has the bad translation, right? In the Tanakh edition, bad translation. Let's read it. And I'm gonna hone in on the particular point I want to make in the Hebrew. All right. So let me do this. Let me show y'all it while I'm going through it, right? While I'm reading it. I have it here. Okay, let's get this one first. Let me bring it out. All right. So this has, let me zoom in. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay. So, okay, let me just do this. Okay. So I want to get another English translation. I want to see if y'all can find the peculiar thing in this, right? I'm gonna read this to y'all real quick from the Tanakh, and then we're gonna go into the English translation, right? So let me, and this is how you know I didn't even get to set this up yet. I just was like, well, let me share this. All right. So let me zoom out of this because I don't need to zoom in on this. All right. So hold on. All right. All right. Let me share this screen real quick. Let me go through this with y'all. I'm gonna go back and forth. Hold on. See, I just threw it up. I didn't even get a chance to really put it together like that, but whatever. All right. Here we go. Hopefully y'all can see this. This is Ruth chapter 4, verse 16, all right? But I'm gonna start at verse 13, okay? And then I'm gonna hone in on verse 16. And let me know if y'all can understand what's going on here, okay? So let's go ahead and read it. All right, so it says here, verse 13, all right? It's not here, but y'all can follow. It says, and so Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he came to her. Hashem let her conceive, and she bore a son. And the woman said to Naomi, blessed is Hashem. Now I'm reading this from the Stone Edition Tanakh, and I'm going to read some of the translations that stay on the screen. It says, blessed is Hashem, who has not left you without a redeemer today. May his name be famous in Israel. He will become your life restorer to sustain your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you has borne him, and she is better to you than 7 sons. Okay. Now, let's go to verse 16. And Naomi took the child and held it in her bosom, and she became his nurse. The neighborhood women gave him a name, saying, "A son is born to Naomi. A son is born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. All right, let's slow down here. So when people read this, verse 4, chapter 4, verse 16, they ask me a question. They say, hey, did Ruth really breastfeed Obed? Right? Now, when we read these critical edition Bibles, some of them are formal equivalency translations. Some of them are dynamic equivalent translations. Dynamic equivalency translations give you more thought for thought translation, meaning that the translators say, hey, look, what we want to do is instead of really translate it slavishly word for word, we're going to do thought for thought. So that way, even idioms are carried over and is better understood in the language in which we're translating it to. And then you have the formal equivalency who decides, hey, we're going to really do as much of a slavish word for word translation as possible. So that way we can preserve as much of the essence of the original language as possible. Okay. And there's benefits, pros and cons for both translations. That's why typically I'll go into the original language, I'll translate it myself, and then I'll compare my translation with the critical edition translations and look at both a formal equivalency translation and a dynamic equivalency translation and be able to get even greater essence of what the text is saying. All right. So in this case, I'm showing you the NIV, the NLT, the ESV, the BSB, the NASB, the KJV, the CSB, etc. It says, then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, and she cared for him as if he were her own. Now, this is why the Hebrew is extremely important, because I tell people all the time, if you're going to do a translation, translate only the Hebrew data that's there. If there's no data in Hebrew to translate to or translate from, leave it out. You can put parentheses in there for emphasis, right, or clarity, or to add your little input, but don't mislead people into thinking that those words are there. Now, I'll tell you right now, where it says Naomi took the baby and cuddled him into her breast, I mean, that word breast is literally not there, but it implies that, oh, maybe she's breastfeeding. When you go to the ESV, then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap and became a nurse to him. Then Naomi took the child, laid him in her lap, became his nurse. And Naomi took the child, laid him in her bosom and became nurse unto it. Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap and became his nanny. Interesting. Naomi loved the boy and took good care of him. Naomi took the child, held him close, and took care of him. Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap, and took care of him. Hold on, let me scroll down some more here. Right? Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap, took care of him. Naomi took care of the child, taking him to her breast and becoming his nurse. Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap. She became his caregiver. Then you see his guardian, you see looked after him, and you see the word nurse, right? The word nurse. The word nurse there, bad translation. The word breast, bad translation. The word breast is not there. The word nurse is not there. Okay? So these two words are very misleading. Okay? Extremely misleading. And what we have to do in order for us to get a better understanding of the text is be able to interpret this as we see it from the Hebrew itself. All right. So from the Tanakh Stone Edition, I'm going to go through the Hebrew. Right. I'm going to read this out and I'm going to center in on something that's extremely important. Right. We have Watika Naomi et Hayeled Watesetehu Beheka Watehi lo le omenet. So we're going to hone in on Watehi lo le omenet. That phrase is very important. But The phrase before it, beheka, is also very important. And even, actually, the whole verse is important. But I want to focus on wate setehu and beheka and watehi lo leomenet. So the leomenet is really what I want to focus in on because it's extremely important. I'm going to show you exactly where, if this thing can actually zoom in appropriately. Hold on. Let me see if y'all can see this. I don't know if y'all can see it very clear. It's hard for me to hold it up. So this is wat tehi lo. This is o menet. All right. So when we see this right here, I want you to hone in on something because this is important when you do your studies, right? Let me get you back to the screen so you can see. Hold on, let me get you back to the screen. And I'll have the further breakdown when I do the Facebook post, all right? So let me get the screen. Here we go. All right. And let me jump back to here. Well, not there. All right, so I lost my tab. What happened to my tab? Oh. All right, there we go. All right. So now looking at this right here is extremely important, okay? And I'm gonna show you even in this breakdown here, right? When I do the when I parse it out for you guys and render it and post it on Facebook, you'll be able to follow it piece by piece, and we can go into the grammar and everything like that. But what we want to focus in on is here, this right here. What tehi lo leo menet. Okay? Because we're going to look for this root word here. Now, I don't know if any of you could pick it out yet. Aleph mem nun. Aleph mem nun. It's really interesting here. But supposedly, this is supposed to be the word for nurse. That's interesting. Okay? So, when you go back and research this and you see what this word is, you know what the root word there is? And the cow stem is aman. Aleph kametz men patak nun. And that word means to confirm, to support, and in some cases loosely to believe, but to establish. And this is where we get the word amen from. So how do you translate the word amen to nurse? That's interesting. That's deep. This is why it's important to learn the language, because you get to see that sometimes these things are not translated appropriately. So you have to go back and do your due diligence to study. So those of you who may not be able to get into the grammar of the language, at least through the word study. So you go here, and as you're reading this text itself, you'll go here and you'll scroll down and you'll see that they also translate and they say his nurse, right? His nurse. So third person masculine singular, his, or possessive, his nurse, right? Then we have the word lap here, the word chik. Now, the word for breast is shed, right? Or shad. That's the word for breast. That's not the word here. Then we have the word het there, right? Het there. And we have the word aman here. These, and again, when you're looking at these online Bibles, this right here is just giving you the root, right? This is like part of the parsing of the entire word here. Because as you can see, you have a prefix here, and you see here you have a suffix here. And the suffix and its prefix mean things. But the root word here, aleph men nun, is what you need to hone in on. It's extremely important. Extremely important. Okay? So this word is aman. Aman. We get the word amen from. Deep. But they translate it as nurse. Then you get this word here. It says they translate it as lap. It's the word hik there, right? But when you go and you look at this word aman, you click on it, and you can get, and this is this gives you some of the Strong's Concordance, which is elementary, but you can still use it to get it understanding. It's dated, but you can go into other lexicons, right? And here they have the Gesenius Hebrew Chaldean lexicon. So you got an official lexicon here, right? The verified. But let's read this to see what this says, right? Now, what we're going to really see here is something very important. The word amen, right? And the cow stem, and you notice the cow stem when you see the kametz and the patak. The kametz is on the first consonant of the triconsonantal root, and the second consonant will have the patak, and that is the cow stem, the simple active voice, right? Simple verb, right? And in this case, if you don't have the prefix, it is in a perfect tense, right? Which means it's a completed action. But let's keep going in. Aman, it's a verb, right? It means to believe, assurance, faithful, sure, established, to bring up, continuous. They say the word father here, nurse or be nursed here, which is really bad translation. Trusty, steadfast. They had the word fail there, which is interesting. Surely be, right? And the cow stem, it means to support, to confirm, to be faithful, to uphold, to nourish, right? The nephal stem, right? This is important. The cow is a simple active voice. Nephal is the passive voice. To be established, to be faithful, to be carried, to make firm. And the hephal stem is the causative active voice, right? To stand firm, to trust, to be certain, to believe. Now, in this case, we have let's go back. We have the segol underneath, right? We have two of them. And you'll see this also where like you get the word malak, which in the cow stem means to reign. And you have melek, which has the same diacritic marks underneath, which indicates that we're taking that verb and turning it into a noun, right? And melek means he who reigns, right? Or unless you have a suffix here, a pronominal suffix or a pronominal prefix, whatever the case may be, you can change it and all that type of fun stuff, right? But the most important thing we're looking at is this triconsonantal root, aleph, mem, nun, has nothing to do with a nurse. Bad translation. Let's go to this word here. Het, right? Het, yod, kuf. Let's go into it. It means the bosom, the hollow, the mist. When they say bosom, is I'm bringing something close to me. I'm bonding with it. Okay? The bottom, the lap, the mist within, right? And they say a variant there, right? It says kake or hik or hok, from an unused root, apparently meaning to enclose the bosom, literally or figuratively. The bosom, the bottom, the lap, the mist within. We look at the Gesenius Hebrew Chaldean lexicon. It says rarely, you see hik from Proverbs 17:23 with suffix. We have the hik and we have the yod. We have the kuf and we have the yod. Psalm 35:13. We have the hit, the kuf, and the yod. Job 19:27. The masculine, the bosom, i.e. the breast with the arms, so-called from embracing. That is important. Embracing. The area of embracing or bringing something close to you. Not your breast, something close to you. There's a Hebrew word for the word breast. Okay? We're going to get into that. I'm going to get into that. But before we get into that, we see something very interesting. So this word, are you telling me this word nurse is not there? This means something that is established, something that is supported. One who supports, one who establishes something. And how do you establish or support something? You become a foster parent. You become an adoptive parent, right? You become a caretaker. You become a guardian. You assume that role, right? Now, you may have to nurse. And when we say nurse, we're not talking about breastfeed, because we know Naomi's age, she cannot lactate anymore and give breast. Maybe supple she can give, but not breast milk to give any sustenance to that child. But she has taken that child and she's become the adoptive mother. She's become the legal guardian of that child. Why? Because that child needs to be engulfed in Israelite culture, because Ruth was a Moabite. This is heavy. This is deep. This is extremely important because the same customs, traditions, understandings that Naomi had, her son who passed, that was the husband of Ruth, he would have shared the same things with that child. That's why the child then was given to Naomi. So Naomi can take that child she can embrace that child, bring that child close to her, and become the legal parent or the guardian. So that when the community sees that now this young child, where we get the word Yalad, which means to bring forth something that's young, that's being brought forth, or read, or Yaled, which means a young individual that is in the rearing stage. Okay, so you have a situation where it's an open display in which Naomi is taking the child from the mother Ruth and embracing the child openly as the legal guardian. Now people will associate Obed with Naomi. We see this happen sometimes in our communities where we have grandchildren in which the mothers don't raise them, but the people see the grandmother with the child, and a lot of times over time they assume that the grandmother is the direct parent of that child. And the child even considers the grandmother their mother because the mother was an absentee, or the grandfather because the father's an absentee, right? So this is a custom. She's not breastfeeding this child. She's not a wet nurse. There's a word for wet nurse. We're going to get into it. We're going to get in Exodus chapter 2, verse 7. I'm going to put it up here on the screen for y'all. We're going to read, and I'm going to get the word breast for y'all too, because breast is not in here, but I'm going to get the word breast so you can see the word breast is shed. Breast is two different words. There's a word also for nurse. And when you do the word study, you may not know the grammar. Like I get into the grammar, but I try to simplify to keep it at least just to the word study, so you can start to identify certain things and see the discrepancies and and be able to identify nuances and reconcile things, so that way you can have a more appropriate translation. This is why I say I support learning the language, but don't learn it so that you're so mechanical with it that you can't do nothing else with it, or that you're using your ability to know and learn the language in order to undermine somebody else, simply because you have an ought against them or you have a bone to pick. That's not righteous. It's not righteous. Learn it for your own self-development. That's it. And maybe to correct those who are in error if they're willing to listen. If you know they're not going to listen to you, just put it out. And if it's God's will, they will watch it and it will change and transform them. You don't always have to challenge somebody in order to get them to see your point. Okay? There are better ways to teach or share what you've encountered with others, right? So anyway, let's read this. So here, well, matter of fact, let me get it from the Stone Edition Tanakh, right? And it says, his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and summon for you a wet nurse from the Hebrew women who will nurse the boy for you?" Now, when you understand the situation, you see that Moshe's mother, she, after they conceived and had Moshe, by his mother, it's talking about the Levite in verse 1. Pharaoh wanted all the firstborn males of the Hebrews to be put to death, right? But Moshe's mother decided she couldn't do that. So she took him and she put him in a basket and sent him, through the Nile, where he was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter. And Pharaoh's daughter takes the child out. But the sister, Moses' sister, who we're going to see is Miriam, she follows this basket into the area where Pharaoh's daughter was at. And when Pharaoh uncovered this child, what the sister said was to the Pharaoh's daughter, "Hey, can I go get a Hebrew woman to go and nurse this child?" Meaning breastfeed this child, rear this child. Okay? So it says here, "Shall I go and summon for you a wet nurse from the Hebrew women who will nurse the boy for you?" Now we see this word nurse there. Now remember, we also see the word nurse there in Ruth chapter 4, right? Verse 16. Now we get into Exodus chapter 2, verse 7, and automatically in your mind, because you're going to read Exodus, right, before you get to Ruth. So you're going to think, oh, when I see this word nurse again, it's going to mean the same thing. but no, it doesn't, because this is a different word that represents this. Okay, totally different word that represents this. All right, we're gonna get into it. So when we're reading it from the Stone Edition Tanakh, it says, "Wat tomer achotoi el bat paro he'elek we karati lak isha meneket." Keep that word in mind. Meneket mean ha-ibriot wetinik lak it ha-yaled. And you see the word yaled there again. So you can at least identify the word yaled there, but the word there for nurse is meneket, to nurse. And then you have ha-ibriot, which means the Hebrew women plural, we tenik. Now again, if you're listening to meneket and we tenik, you're going to be able to identify a triconsonantal root. And then now, once you identify this triconsonantal root, you have to be able to marry this up with something. So let's break this out. Let's break this out. Now we got to something called yanak, right? Yod, Chametz, Nun, Patak, Kuf. Yanak is the word there for nurse. And then we see it again. It's rendered differently, but it's the same triconsonantal root. Yanak. We have the word nurse there again. So if we scroll up and we look here and we see all of this highlighted here, what we're going to identify is this triconsonantal root. Yod, Nun, Kuf. Yod, Nun, Kuf. Right? It has a prefix mem, has a suffix tav. And when we get into grammar, I'll break that down for you a little bit more so you can understand what's going on here. But then we see it again, Yod, Nun, Kuf. We see here again a tav prefix in it and a wav prefix in it. Now, this is important because this word is supposed to mean nurse. Now, let's go and look and examine this a little deeper. Let's examine this a little deeper, see what yanak means, right? Yanak means to suckle, to nurse, to suck. The suckling of a babe, to give suck to. If it's in the hefil stem, that means to cause the give. That means somebody was the agent doing the act, causing the action to happen. It was an agent causing the action to happen. The cow is a simple active voice or the simple action in the root verb that you, the lowest root verb you can get, where they're giving suck to a baby. Okay. So in the Gesenius, it says to suck, Job 3:12, properly a mother's breast, followed by the accusative. Okay. And here we see the accusative is the yaled, or the young rearing, the young child that's being reared. Okay. Joel 2:16, but use also of other things. That Job said he sucked the poison of asp, etc. And sometimes people will suck the poison of asp because if they be in old time, ancient times, if they get bit by a snake, they would immediately suck on that region in which the two holes from the fangs of the snake would penetrate the skin, and they will suck the poison out as a baby is suckling the mother for the sustenance that comes from the breast milk. Okay. And if y'all saw my lecture on the health thing, I talked about the importance of breast milk. And when there's a lack of breast milk being provided to a child before it is weaned, then that child can have all types of developmental issues in the immune system and their social interactions, their intellect, etc., etc. All right. So we see here that this literally means the suckling, to give milk, the milch. Okay. This right here literally means a wet nurse. Now, this is why learning the language is very, very important. Because when somebody asks me, did Naomi breastfeed that child? How could she do that when she was of an old age? She was in menopause and an old age. She was no longer lactating. How was it possible that she could breastfeed the child and give sustenance to the child? Because sometimes you can give calmness to the child. You can give the child solace. You can give the child rest and peace simply by allowing the child to suck the nipple. Similar to today, when you give a child, a pacifier, it does the same thing. So you can pacify the child, give them comfort, but no sustenance would get to the child. The child was still getting sustenance from his mother. All she did was she became the legal guardian, so that way she can impress upon that child the statute, laws, the commandments, the culture, etc., So that child could be reared up in the absence of his father, whose his father's job would have been to do so. But now you also have this kinsman redeemer, which was Boaz, and Boaz himself also would have imparted these things into the child. But out of respect for the absence of her dead son, it was given to Naomi to take over the nurturing aspect as it pertains to becoming the legal guardian or the caretaker or the adoptive or foster parent of Obed. This is why when you get into the language, it helps you to identify these things that otherwise a translation cannot explain to you. And simply, if you do not understand the grammar of the text, right, the syntax, at least address the orthography and the morphology. So that way you can line things up, go and look for the triconsonantal roots, and then understand if this is matching up with the direct translation that's there in English. And as you can see, we just undermined the English translation. And family, this is also going to show you that just because you have a Stone Edition Tanakh does not mean that the Stone Edition Tanakh is going to translate everything to you correctly. So I would have translated that as a supporter, as a guardian, right? As one that's helping to establish this child. I wouldn't translate that word there that they translated for breast, or they say we'll say lap. I would say embrace, the area of embracing, which would be the chest, holding something dear to you. There's better ways that you can translate than a translation that you even get from this Stone Edition Tanakh. This is why learning the language is valuable, because you get to decipher things that typical people who only take for face value the translation cannot see. And the reason why I'm sharing this is simply because I want to give an answer to people who inquired as to whether or not Naomi was breastfeeding this child when she was in her old age. And I just wanted to give an answer. I wasn't learning this so I can go tell somebody off. I wasn't learning this to show somebody I know Hebrew. I'm giving this for the edification of the readers of this narrative who are trying to identify with the cultural elements so they can find the principles to implement today so they can better their lives, and that way they can strengthen their walk with Yah. Okay. All right. I think let me get the last word I want to get for y'all. So I want to show y'all, when they're translating this, how bad this is for a translation, right? I'm gonna go to well, I could go to no, that's not the one I want to go to. I want to go to let me go to Job. Let me go to Job 24:9. All right. It says, others snatch the orphan from the breast. Orphan breast. Now, if Ruth and Boaz were absent or died, and let's say, for example, Obed was still alive, and Naomi took Obed, Obed would be an orphan, right? So you get an idea of these things when you say others snatch the orphan from the breast. And the word breast is literally the physical breast. Okay. Let me show you this real quick. Hold on. I'm gonna show you this real quick. Hold on. Let me get it. There we go. See? So from the breast. So now we have Mem, Shin, Dalet. We have a Dagesh Forte here, which means we're gonna double we're gonna double the consonant sound, right? So this sound is gonna be doubled, okay? And as you can see, there's two dots over it. Really interesting. But you have the mem, which is a prefix, and the mem is a preposition meaning from, okay? The word ha is not there, which would be the definite article the, but we have from here, and then we have the root shin or sin, depending on how you want to say it, and dalet. This literally means breast, as we can see here from the root shad. If you go here and we look at the root shad, it means the breast, teat, or to pap. The breast, bosom, female breast, breast of a woman, breast of an animal, breast of both a human and an animal, right? And we see here breast, teat, both of human beings and of beast, okay? So we see that there is a word for breast. So when we go back and we read this translation right here, when Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, that word breast is not there. Somebody added that. Now they got this part right, and she cared for him as if it were her own. But as you can see, look how loose this NLT translation is. It's just adding stuff all over the place, right? Here you said, then Naomi took the child in her arms, which technically she had to have done if she was embracing the child. But this word arms is not there. And cared for him. Or you can say, and she supported him or was his support, depending upon how you want to translate it. But then you also see where it says bosom, which the King James actually gets correct, depending on how you want to say it. But they get the nurse part wrong. You see? They got that part wrong. It says they took care of him, became his nanny, which is interesting, right? Caregiver, guardian, I would say legal guardian, which is really good translation. But a lot of the things it's saying nurse. We see nurse is not there. We see breast is not there. A lot of them say bosom. Some say lap. Okay, you can say lap, but it's really the area of embrace where the child is embraced, right? So this is the value of learning the language. And even if you don't know the grammar, at least looking up the words to fact check what the translation is saying so you can know what's going on, so you don't have to ask these questions, right? You can do the research for yourself. So I'm just giving you the tools. You can come here to BibleHub.com, or you can go to blueletterbible.org, and they have a tons of resources that you can utilize in order to do the same research for yourselves. All right. So this is just an answer for those who had asked me that question. And I'm just showing you guys that when you get into the language, the text answers for itself in the original language. All right. So with that, let me end off. Let me just check the chat real quick because I've abandoned y'all for a little bit, but let me check the chat real quick. And then we're going to close out. All right. So give me 1 second. And close out all these screens now. All right. So, that's what it is, Marielle, and that's the objective. You know, going back to the pre-exilic time period and separating the Hellenistic philosophy and Zoroastric influences. And when you do that, when you cut the fat and you really get the lean meat, you really get the substance of what the ancestors left behind. All right. The shepherd, I agree, he does. I agree. Azaziah, they do. King Kosher says, what data suggests majestic plural? Well, you technically do have a case for the majestic plural, not in Bereshit chapter 1. It's really in Psalms or Tehillim 82. You actually have an argument for a majestic plural there. And I'll get into that when I do the henotheism lecture. But go back and read Psalms 82 in the Hebrew, and you'll see there's actually a case for the majestic plural. All right. That's like one of the rare places where the majestic plural is actually there. And if somebody was to argue for majestic plural, they should start from that position. All right. Oh, Black Eyes TV. Yes, you have. Let me see. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Saturday. That won't be good. Sunday will probably be the best time to contact me. So reach out to me again on Sunday because I've been ripping and running and doing all types of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So contact me on Sunday and let's get in touch and let's build. All right? Because I have an idea based on what you share with me, what you want to discuss. All right. Saying Kofa, yes, a watchful God, quote unquote, godmother. All right. And that's extremely important right there. So hopefully the information that y'all got tonight on several different planes was enough to sustain you, to inspire you, to motivate you to get deeper into your studies, to get closer with Yah, and to understand that this walk is about getting back to the cultural roots that our ancestors have left behind so we can be a sturdy, upright tree that can weather the storm. And this is extremely important, extremely important. If the roots are not deep, then it doesn't matter how elaborate the tree looks. It will not weather the storm when it gets hit with something that is, adverse. So when we get ourselves back to reconciling back with this restorative cultural aspect, to understand the things that were left behind and to properly interpret these things with the intent not to have a robotic stance in regards to how we display it or to think that we're better than everybody else, but to become a greater servant of Yah and to his people, to be the chief servant. To say, yeah, with this knowledge, I will serve your people. With this knowledge, I will serve you. I will humble myself. No matter how much you've given me, yeah, I realize that without you, I am nothing. We have to be able to remind ourselves to reflect on these things. Because if we don't, we would get so beside ourselves that we will lose the purpose and chase an agenda. So let's reel ourselves back in, family, and understand that the purpose of culture is not only to transform our character, but to give us an obligation to our creator as well as to our community. And when these things are restored, then we can see change. So with that, family, I hope you guys enjoyed this Freestyle Friday session. Thank y'all for rocking with me to almost 6 in the morning. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Definitely look forward to seeing and hearing from y'all again. Those of you who was asking me about the donation, you can donate via GoFundMe. You can look up Kingdom Harbinger Ministries and donate via GoFundMe. We also have, or I also have a Divine Prospect in my Patreon account. You can go and become a monthly subscriber to Patreon if you like. Also, PayPal, the email address is kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. And you can also do a super chat always whenever we're live, all right? And these details will also be in the caption area or the description area of the video. So you guys have this as a reference. As always, please keep them in your prayers. Please share this video. Stay woke.